In 2012, Marvel's The Avengers hit theaters and instantly changed the landscape of blockbuster cinema. It wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural phenomenon, unavoidable in pop culture as quotes and memes spread like wildfire. The film shattered records, grossing over $1.5 billion worldwide, and at one point becoming the third highest grossing movie of all time. This massive success cemented Marvel's dominance in Hollywood, proving that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, was here to stay. For many fans, The Avengers felt as impactful to this generation as Star Wars had in its day, a true cinematic event that lived up to years of built-up hype. Yet bringing all these heroes together was a risky gamble at the time. Nothing of this scale, merging characters from 5 separate blockbuster franchises, had been attempted before. A World War II super soldier, a billionaire inventor in a high-tech suit, a literal Norse god, a rage-fueled green monster, a master assassin, and a sharpshooter with a bow and arrow all walk onto a helicarrier. It sounds like the setup to a joke. Even Marvel wasn't certain audiences would accept such a wild mix of characters in one story. Unlike preformed teams like the X-Men, the Avengers had to earn their unity on screen, and there was every chance these big personalities would clash instead of gel. But against the odds, it worked. Spectacularly so. The movie delivered on its promise of thrilling action and character interaction, raising the bar for superhero crossovers. Critics and audiences alike praised director Joss Whedon for pulling off the impossible. His script managed to emphasize the hero's humanity while balancing a wealth of superpowered set-piece moments, allowing the Avengers to live up to its sky-high expectations. The result was a film that combined heart, humor, and spectacle in equal measure. Whedon's trademark witty dialogue kept the tone entertaining without undermining the stakes, and each hero got moments to shine. Indeed, The Avengers masterfully blends explosive action with a surprising amount of comedy, making the 2.5-hour runtime a thrilling ride for viewers. From jaw-dropping battles to laugh-out-loud one-liners, the movie gave fans exactly what they desire. A payoff to the years of setup that exceeded expectations in many ways. In this comprehensive breakdown, we'll explore the film in depth, recounting its plot, analysing key scenes and character arcs, and discussing fan theories, themes, and hidden details you might have missed. Whether you're a long-time Marvel fan, revisiting the movie, or a newcomer curious about the hype, this analysis will walk you through the Avengers scene by scene. We'll see how Earth's mightiest heroes finally come together, examine what makes each character tick, delve into the film's deeper meanings, and some fun Easter eggs, and look at how the Avengers set the stage for an entire cinematic universe. So, assemble your attention, and maybe grab some shawarma for later, as we dive into Marvel's The Avengers, a film that left an indelible mark on pop culture and had audiences cheering in theatres around the world. To understand the impact of The Avengers, it's important to remember the road leading up to its release. The film was the culmination of Marvel's Phase 1 of interconnected movies, an ambitious plan that was far from guaranteed to succeed. Starting with Iron Man in 2008, Marvel Studios had carefully planted seeds for a shared universe, including post-credit stinger scenes hinting at the Avengers initiative. Nick Fury's surprise appearance at the end of Iron Man 2008, inviting Tony Stark into a bigger universe, was the first tease. Subsequent films, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America, The First Avenger, each introduced our key heroes and dropped additional clues, from Thor's brother Loki being a looming threat to the discovery of the cosmic Tesseract cube, that all led to this grand crossover. By the time The Avengers was announced, fans knew these separate threads were destined to converge in one epic story. Still, the idea of a team-up film was daring. Bringing together heroes from standalone hits was unprecedented in modern cinema. There were logistical challenges, coordinating a large ensemble cast, and creative challenges, balancing tone and screen time, so that each hero's presence felt justified. Early on, Marvel's confidence in the concept was evident. They subtitled Captain America 2011 as The First Avenger to drive the connection home. Hype built steadily with each film, but also expectations skyrocketed. By 2012, audiences had invested in these characters individually and desperately wanted to see them interact. Marvel stoked excitement with marketing that emphasized the assembling of the team, and the film's very title in some regions was Avengers Assemble. It's worth noting that even within Marvel Studios there were contingency plans. Joss Whedon, who was brought on to write and direct, revealed that in early drafts he considered adding different characters if needed. For example, he wrote a version of the script featuring Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, partly because there were doubts about Scarlett Johansson's availability to reprise Black Widow. There were also discussions about including a second major villain aside from Loki. Whedon joked that he had 4 of the biggest, baddest, toughest guys out there, and I've got one effete British character actor as the antagonist, so at one point he pondered adding another villain for balance. Ultimately, Marvel insisted on keeping the focus on Loki and not overcomplicating the story with extra mythology, aside from a certain Thanos cameo we'll discuss later. These behind-the-scenes adjustments show how carefully Marvel calibrated the film to ensure it worked. By the time The Avengers was ready to premiere, anticipation was through the roof. Unfortunately, the final product met the hype head-on. Now, let's dive into the plot of The Avengers itself. We'll break down the story act by act, interweaving analysis and insights along the way. From the moment Loki opens a portal to Earth to the triumphant finale in New York, we'll see how the film crafts a narrative that not only delivers large-scale action, but also highlights the personal journeys and conflicts of its heroes. Get ready to relive the excitement. Avengers Assemble. Plot breakdown and analysis. Act 1. Opening moves, Loki's invasion, and the Avengers initiative. The Avengers begins with a tense prologue that quickly establishes the high stakes and central MacGuffin of the story. Deep in a SHIELD research facility, scientists led by Dr. Erik Selvig are studying the Tesseract, a mysterious blue cube of energy first seen in Captain America, the first Avenger. Without warning, the Tesseract activates and opens a portal, a gateway across space. Through it emerges Loki, Tom Hiddleston, the exiled Asgardian prince and brother of Thor. Loki has conspicuously changed since we last saw him in Thor, 2011. Here he arrives with a menacing grin and 12-13-14-2 new gifts, namely a scepter weapon and a dangerous alliance at his back. In a few quick strokes, the film reveals the threat. Loki, having struck a deal with unseen cosmic forces, is there to steal the Tesseract and unleash an alien army on Earth. Loki's surprise attack on the SHIELD base is swift and effective. He mortally wounds several agents, uses his scepter's power to blast away anyone in his path, and, crucially, employs the scepter's mind control on 2 important characters, Clint Barton, Jeremy Renner, a master archer better known as Hawkeye, and Dr. Selvig. With a touch of the scepter to their chests, Loki bends both men to his will. In just a few minutes, SHIELD goes from securely guarding the Tesseract to losing both the artifact and key personnel to this mysterious invader. Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, SHIELD's director, can only watch as Loki escapes with the cube. To make matters worse, Loki's arrival triggers a chain reaction that collapses the entire facility, a dramatic explosion that Fury and a few others barely escape. This explosive opening sequence sets a frantic tone and establishes that the Tesseract, essentially an object of limitless energy, is the prized item everyone will be chasing. Romanoff/Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, is first seen in the middle of an interrogation, except she's the one tied to a chair. In a scene equal parts humorous and badass, Natasha is being interrogated by Russian mobsters, only to reveal she's actually extracting information from them. When Agent Coulson, Clark Gregg, calls her mid-mission to summon her back, we see her deadly skill in action as she effortlessly takes down a room of thugs while still on the phone. This scene reintroduces Black Widow's resourcefulness and combat prowess, and also drops a hint about her next task, retrieving the big guy. Despite her cool confidence facing gangsters, Natasha shows a flicker of apprehension at the mention of this assignment, a subtle foreshadowing of her complicated history with the Hulk. Bruce Banner/the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, is found in a remote Calcutta slum where he's living quietly as a doctor, treating the sick. The film takes care to introduce Banner's new actor, Ruffalo stepping in for Edward Norton, and temperament. Natasha arrives to recruit him, appealing to his expertise with gamma radiation to trace the stolen Tesseract. This tense scene highlights Banner's wariness. He's terrified of unleashing the other guy, the Hulk, and initially suspects Natasha might be there to capture him. Ruffalo's Banner comes across as gentle, self-deprecating, yet coiled with suppressed tension. We learn that since his last appearance, he's avoided transforming for an extended period, indicating some control. Black Widow's calm but cautious approach, with a SHIELD strike team secretly surrounding the hut, underscores that Banner is both valued and feared. His agreement to help signals that Bruce Banner is on board, though on his terms, emphasizing he's needed for his brain more than the Hulk. Steve Rogers / Captain America, Chris Evans, gets a brief but poignant introduction. We catch up with him in a gym, unleashing his frustrations on punching bags, literally knocking them off their chains. Still adjusting to the modern world after being frozen since World War II, Steve is a man out of time and haunted by the loss of everyone he knew. Nick Fury approaches him with a mission and a file about the Tesseract, which has a personal connection for Steve. It's the very object that was fought over in his origin film and which sent him into the ice. Steve's dialogue with Fury shows his resolve. Despite feeling displaced, he's a soldier at heart and doesn't hesitate to suit up when duty calls. Through this scene, we understand Cap's conflicted state. Lonely, out of his era, but also his unwavering commitment to do what's right. Tony Stark / Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., enters the story in trademark Tony Stark fashion. Mid-project, bantering with his partner Pepper Potts, while showing off the clean energy Stark Tower he has just built in New York City. Agent Coulson arrives to recruit Tony, who at first reacts with his usual witty aloofness. We see Tony's evolution since Iron Man 2. He's no longer dying or reckless with his tech, and he's working alongside Pepper harmoniously. Coulson's appearance also provides a bit of levity, Tony teasing him about first-name Agent, a callback to Coulson's running gag from prior films. Though Tony pretends to be reluctant, it's clear his curiosity is piqued when Coulson mentions the Tesseract has been stolen. Stark's narcissistic shell cracks just enough to hint that he can't resist a crisis of this magnitude. This scene efficiently sets up Tony as a genius who's going to bring both firepower and a hefty ego to the team. While these recruitments happen, the film also cuts away to show Loki's next moves, keeping the villain plot running in parallel. Loki, now armed with both the Tesseract and his scepter, begins orchestrating a larger plan. He meets with an intermediary of the alien force that lent him the army, the other a servant of the Dark Lord Thanos. And we learn Loki's bargain. He must retrieve the Tesseract for his alien benefactor, and in exchange he'll receive an army of Chitauri to conquer Earth. The mention of a mysterious otherworldly leader and Loki's grim determination establish that something even more powerful than Loki lurks behind the curtain. Comic-savvy viewers might guess who that is, and indeed the film will later confirm it with a mid-credits reveal of Thanos. For now, the important point is Loki has a clear motive. He wants to rule Earth, to subjugate the miserable humans and prove himself superior, fulfilling the grandiose purpose he believes he's burdened with. Hiddleston's performance makes Loki simultaneously charismatic and loathsome. He sneers about freedom being life's great lie, indicating his intent to rule by fear. This speech not only defines Loki's villainy, seeking absolute power in response to his wounded ego, but also introduces a key theme of the film, the value of freedom versus the threat of subjugation. By the end of Act 1, the stage is set. Nick Fury officially activates the Avengers initiative, telling his officers that we are at war and they need a response team. The heroes are either on their way or being convinced, and Loki is moving his chess pieces, mind-controlled Hawkeye and Selvig, to further his scheme. The audience understands the basic stakes. If Loki isn't stopped, he will open a portal for his alien army to invade Earth. The ticking clock is introduced when we learn Selvig is already working on using the Tesseract to stabilize such a portal. Tension builds because every moment the heroes are not united is a moment Loki gets closer to unleashing catastrophe. It's impressive how much exposition this first act covers in roughly 10 to 15 minutes, while still remaining engaging. In a short span, we learn who the villain is, what he wants, what the MacGuffin is, and we reintroduce 4 of the 6 Avengers with their current status. As one analyst noted, these opening sequences carry a lot of narrative weight, Yet director Joss Whedon keeps it fast-paced and fun, mixing action, humour, and character beats so that the audience isn't bored by the information being delivered. The groundwork is laid efficiently, setting us up for the thrilling events to follow. Act 2. Assembling the team. Heroes meet and tensions rise. With the preliminaries out of the way, the Avengers moves into the process of actually bringing its heroes together. This middle section of the film, roughly the first half of Act 2, is all about introductions and the initial friction between these larger-than-life personalities. By now, Nick Fury has gotten most of the players on the board, and circumstances will soon bring them face to face. A standout early sequence in this act is the capture of Loki in Germany. Loki, needing a rare metal, iridium, to help stabilize the Tesseract's power, causes a scene at a gala in Stuttgart. Dressed in a stylish suit and using his scepter to terrorize a crowd, Loki forces civilians to kneel before him, delivering a chilling monologue about humanity's love of subjugation. He declares that humans were made to be ruled. In a moment that shows Loki's cruel streak, he nearly kills an elderly man who bravely stands up to him. This prompts the timely arrival of Steve Rogers / Captain America in full star-spangled suit, shield in hand, to protect the innocent. It's the first time we see an Avenger confronting Loki directly, and the audience gets an immediate payoff seeing Cap, the emblem of freedom, opposing Loki's tyrannical stance. Black Widow, providing air support in a jet, joins the fray, and soon Tony Stark / Iron Man swoops in as well to the sound of AC / DC's music, quipping, "Make your move, reindeer games." Surrounded and outmatched, Loki surprisingly surrenders without much fight. This surrender might seem oddly easy, and indeed it raised some eyebrows when the film released. Why would Loki give up now? The film later reveals that Loki intended to be captured as part of his plan, reminiscent of the Joker in The Dark Knight or Silver in Skyfall, who allow themselves to be caught to sow chaos from within. At this moment, though, our heroes chalk it up as a quick win and proceed to escort Loki to SHIELD's Flying Command Center, the helicarrier. Notably, as they escort Loki, we get a brief but enjoyable clash between Thor, Chris Hemsworth, and the others. Thor suddenly arrives via a lightning-charged entrance to reclaim Loki, his adopted brother, and the Tesseract. This leads to a forest skirmish, Iron Man versus Thor versus Captain America, a delight for fans as the heroes test each other. The scuffle is both a showcase of power, we see Thor's strength and lightning versus Iron Man's tech, etc., and a bit of comic ego clashing. It ends with Captain America breaking up the fight. That's enough, and all parties grudgingly agreeing to bring Loki in together. This mini battle establishes early on that these heroes aren't instantly a well-oiled team. They each have pride and differing agendas that can spark conflict. Once everyone is aboard the SHIELD helicarrier, the film really digs into the character interactions, which are arguably the heart of the Avengers. For the first time, we see Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Bruce Banner, Thor, Natasha Romanoff, and Loki all in the same general vicinity, and the results are electric. Some key dynamics and conflicts that emerge. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner form an immediate rapport, a meeting of brilliant minds. Tony is excited to meet the other guy, Banner's Hulk side, and isn't shy about poking at Banner's condition in a provocative but oddly friendly way. They bond over science as they work together to analyse Selvig's research on the Tesseract. This is where Tony famously teases Bruce, "What's your secret?" Mellow jazz, bongo drums, huge bag of weed. Prompting Banner's dry reply that the secret is that he's always angry, a line whose payoff comes later. Despite Tony's prodding, he clearly respects Banner's intellect. Finally, someone who speaks English, Tony says about Banner's expertise. We see Bruce Banner's nervous control. He half jokes about the potential catastrophe if he loses control on the ship, keeping tension in the air. Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, on the other hand, start to butt heads. Their personalities clash. Steve is straightforward, duty-bound, and unimpressed by Tony's flippancy, while Tony is brash, sarcastic, and chafes at authority. In one memorable argument in the lab, Steve calls Tony out. "Big man in a suit of armour. Take that away. What are you?" To which Tony retorts, "Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist." Their exchange gets heated, with Steve accusing Tony of not being the type to make the sacrifice play, and Tony mocking Steve as just a lab experiment from the 1940s. This confrontation not only crackles with wit, it also foreshadows both characters' future arcs. Steve challenging Tony to be more than a suit foreshadows Iron Man 3's exploration of Tony's identity, and the fundamental ideological differences between Tony and Steve lay the groundwork for conflicts that will resurface, even leading up to Civil War years later. For now, it establishes an internal team conflict, tech versus trust, ego versus humility. Thor remains somewhat aloof in these interactions, but he brings an outsider's perspective. He defends Loki at one point. When Black Widow and others call Loki a murderer, Thor interjects with a sheepish, "he's adopted," garnering a laugh. Thor's main concern is the bigger picture. He wants to stop Loki and return him and the Tesseract to Asgard, and he's wary of how these mortals operate. Thor also provides some insight into Loki's psyche, explaining Loki's need for approval and burdened with glorious purpose, attitude. His presence on the helicarrier is a reminder that there's a cosmic scale to this conflict. Gods and aliens are involved, which unsettles the humans present. Natasha, Black Widow, mostly observes quietly, but she has an important interaction with Loki. In a tense interrogation scene, Natasha goes to Loki's cell to question him about Hawkeye's whereabouts and Loki's plans. Loki, ever devious, tries to get into her head, taunting her about the red in her ledger, her dark past as an assassin. He viciously digs at her guilt, even mentioning her close bond with Hawkeye and implying he'll make Hawkeye kill her. Natasha appears rattled and even on the verge of tears, until she suddenly reveals it was all an act. She was interrogating him, tricking Loki into revealing his plan. He intends to unleash the Hulk on the helicarrier to sow chaos. "Thank you for your cooperation," she says coolly, having confirmed that Loki's goal is to fracture the team from within. This scene is a showcase of Black Widow's cunning, and also lays bare her emotional stakes. We learn she feels she has red in her ledger, past misdeeds, that she wants to wipe out by doing good, which is part of why she's so loyal to Hawkeye, since he once spared her and recruited her. Loki tapping into Natasha's dark past not only adds depth to her character, but also highlights Loki's skill at psychological manipulation. All these volatile personalities cooped up together create a powder keg situation. And sure enough, it explodes, both metaphorically and literally. The trigger is twofold. First, the heroes discover that SHIELD, under Fury's direction, had been secretly planning to weaponize the Tesseract, a project codenamed Phase 2. Fury's justification is that after Thor's arrival last year, they realize Earth is outgunned by extraterrestrial threats and need deterrence. Steve Rogers, ever the principled soldier, is angry about this deception, seeing it as a betrayal of what he stands for. Recall that Hydra in his World War II days also sought power from the Tesseract. Tony is similarly upset at being kept in the dark. They confront Fury, and an argument ensues among all present Avengers and Fury. Accusations fly. Tony and Bruce criticize Fury's secrets. Thor chastises them for meddling with forces they don't understand. Steve and Tony argue about responsibility and trust. The scepter sits on a lab table in the middle of them, and in a clever bit of visual storytelling, the camera focuses on the scepter's glowing mindstone as the argument escalates, hinting that it's influencing their negative emotions. Indeed, it's later confirmed that Loki's scepter was subtly sowing discord, amplifying the Avengers' anger towards each other. Voices rise, tempers flare, and at the peak of this tense quarrel, Hawkeye, still under Loki's control, launches a surprise attack on the helicarrier. What follows is one of the film's standout action sequences, a multi-front battle that splinters the team at their weakest moment. Hawkeye's strike causes a massive explosion on one of the helicarrier's engine turbines. The ship lurches in the sky, alarms blaring. In the chaos, Bruce Banner tragically loses control. Just as Loki planned, the stress and adrenaline push Banner over the edge. Despite his efforts to stay calm, he transforms into the Hulk on the helicarrier, with Black Widow trapped in the same room. This is a tense, almost horror-like segment. Natasha, who earlier admitted she's afraid of the other guy, now faces her nightmare as the enraged Hulk chases her through the bowels of the ship. We see the Hulk as a threat to his own allies, exactly what Banner feared. It takes Thor stepping in to engage the Hulk in a mighty clash to prevent Hulk from harming Widow or others. Thor vs. Hulk is a thrilling matchup fans longed for, and it doesn't disappoint. They trade blows, including the famous scene of Thor smashing Mjolnir into Hulk's face like a thunderclap. Eventually, Hulk is lured away by a SHIELD fighter jet, which he leaps at and destroys, falling out of the helicarrier and out of the fight. This sequence not only delivers action, but underscores how Loki's plan to unleash the Hulk succeeded in destabilizing the group. Iron Man and Captain America team up to save the helicarrier from falling. The damage Hawkeye's arrow caused knocks out one of the massive turbine engines that keep the flying ship aloft. Tony and Steve rush to fix it. A great moment because moments ago they were arguing, and now they have to work together under dire circumstances. Tony shows his technical prowess trying to jumpstart the rotor, while Cap fights off enemy agents and pulls lever releases manually. We see them coordinate under pressure, trading trust. At one point, Tony's suit runs low on power while inside the turbine mechanism, and Cap has to pull a lever at just the right moment to get it running and save Tony. This emergency forces them to put aside their differences and cooperate, laying the groundwork for mutual respect. Thor and Loki have a confrontation amid the chaos. Thor goes to Loki's glass cell, originally built to hold the Hulk, intending to reason with his brother or stop him. But Loki tricks Thor with an illusion and manages to trap him in the cell instead. Ever mischievous, Loki then ejects that cell from the helicarrier, plummeting Thor toward the ground. Thor survives, crashing out in a field due to his durability, but he's temporarily removed from the fight. Meanwhile, Loki uses this diversion to escape his restraints. Agent Phil Coulson's heroic stand. Coulson, the beloved everyman agent who's been a through line in Phase 1, confronts Loki with a prototype weapon, derived from Destroyer Tech, a callback to Thor. In a moment that mixes humour and pathos, Coulson faces off with Loki quipping, "Oh, so that's what it does," after blasting him. But Loki, using an illusion, gets the drop on Coulson and impales him with the scepter. Coulson's injury, ultimately fatal as far as the films are concerned, is the emotional gut punch. He was the glue connecting many of the heroes, having personally recruited or interacted with most of them, and his loss is deeply felt. As Fury later notes, Coulson died believing in the Avengers. This becomes a pivotal turning point. The shock of Coulson's death becomes the catalyst that galvanizes the team. In story terms, this is the low point. The heroes have been scattered and hit hard, but it sets the stage for their resolve in the next act. Eventually, the helicarrier crisis subsides. Iron Man and Cap succeed in stabilizing the ship. Black Widow knocks out Hawkeye, a dramatic fight where she uses a concussion blow to break Loki's mind control on him, thus bringing Clint Barton back to his senses, albeit racked with guilt over the havoc he caused while brainwashed. Thor, Hulk and Loki are all flung out of the picture for the moment. Thor and Hulk survive separately. Loki has fled. The Avengers are left battered and shaken by this ordeal. Their unity fell apart, and they paid the price. It's important to highlight the character development and themes in this turbulent sequence. We witness firsthand what Nick Fury warned earlier. This team was like a time bomb of clashing egos and unresolved issues, and Loki expertly lit the fuse. The stark truth is that at this stage, the Avengers were not yet truly a team. They were a group of remarkable individuals pulling in different directions. Trust and cooperation were missing, which is why Loki's scheme to divide and conquer from within nearly succeeds. But we also see seeds of unity being planted. Tony and Steve starting to trust each other in the engine repair. Natasha showing genuine concern for Hawkeye as she frees him from mind control. Thor learning he can't handle Loki alone, and Banner having to confront the destructive side of himself in relation to the others. All of these threads will tie together in the next act when they finally rally. One fascinating fan theory worth mentioning here is about that heated argument scene just before the attack. Observant viewers noted that Loki's scepter was subtly influencing the Avengers' behaviour on the helicarrier, a theory later supported by official sources. The milestone inside Loki's scepter emits a faint glow during the quarrel, hinting that it's heightening the team's anger and mistrust. In fact, the scepter was indeed affecting their minds, increasing tensions and turning them against each other until the external attack snapped them out of it. This explains why the normally composed heroes lost their cool so quickly. It's a clever detail that shows Loki had an extra edge in manipulating the team. In essence, The hero's worst enemy in that moment was their own unchecked emotions, prodded along by an Infinity Stone's subtle whisper of doubt and rage. By the end of Act 2, the Avengers have been disassembled, to borrow a term the film itself alludes to. They've suffered a major setback. Loki is free again and moving forward with his plan, and the team has lost both a comrade, Coulson, and their confidence. This low point is crucial dramatically. It sets the stage for a rousing comeback where the heroes will have to put aside personal issues and truly unite to avenge. A fitting term, given Coulson's fate, and save the world. Act 3. Avengers reassembled. Battle of New York. With their ranks shaken and morale low, the remaining Avengers regroup to assess the situation. Agent Coulson's death weighs heavily on them. In a touching scene, Nick Fury uses Coulson's vintage Captain America trading cards, now blood-stained, as a push to remind Tony and Steve what's at stake. Fury implies Coulson had them in his jacket as a fan, though Fury confesses later that the cards weren't actually in Coulson's pocket, but near. He staged the bloody cards for effect. It's a bit of manipulation on Fury's part, but it works. It gives the heroes a unifying emotional impetus. Coulson believed in the idea of the Avengers, and the best way to honour that is to truly become a team. As Fury says, perhaps Coulson's death had to happen to bring us together. This moment serves as the rallying cry for our heroes to reassemble. Meanwhile, through information gleaned from analysing Loki's plan, and from Loki's own slip-ups, Tony Stark deduces what Loki's next move is. Loki plans to use the Tesseract at Stark's own tower in Manhattan, Stark Tower, to open the portal for the Chitauri invasion. This realisation carries thematic weight. Tony, who at first only half-heartedly was in this fight, now finds the battle is coming literally to his front door. The metaphorical fortress of his ego. His name is on that tower in giant letters. The heroes now have a focus. New York City will be the battleground. With no helicarrier to take them there, it's damaged and grounded for now. They go by simpler means. Steve, Tony, Natasha, and a just-recovered Hawkeye head out to Manhattan to face whatever Loki has unleashed. Thor, having reunited with them after falling from the sky, also races to New York, via the Asgardian transport magic of Heimdall, presumably. As for Bruce Banner, at first he's absent after the helicarrier incident, having awoken human and ashamed after crash landing far away. But notably, as the battle in New York begins, Banner chooses to ride in on a motorcycle, determined to help, showing that despite his earlier mishap, he's willing to face the danger again. What follows is the climactic Battle of New York, an action sequence that runs for a good third of the film and never loses steam. It's here that the Avengers truly delivers on the promise of its premise. All the heroes fighting together against an overwhelming enemy. Let's break down key phases and moments of this battle, as well as their significance. Loki opens the portal. At Stark Tower, Loki forces Dr. Selvig, still under mind control, to activate the Tesseract-powered device. A beam shoots into the sky, tearing open a massive wormhole above the city. Through this portal begins pouring the Chitauri army, cybernetic alien soldiers, and giant flying creatures called Leviathans, enormous armoured serpent-like monsters. The invasion has begun. The first wave of destruction in Manhattan is swift and chaotic. Chitauri, on hover chariots zipping between buildings, shooting blaster weapons, cars exploding, panic in the streets. Civilians flee as the alien onslaught escalates. This sudden war zone in the heart of New York immediately raises the stakes to apocalyptic levels. The Avengers unite in defence. One by one, our heroes engage the invaders, each in their own style. Iron Man is actually first on the scene, since he was already in Stark Tower confronting Loki just as the portal opened. He trades witty banter with Loki, including the iconic exchange, Loki: "I have an army." Tony: "We have a Hulk." Right before the fight breaks out in earnest. True to Tony's words, the Hulk arrives dramatically. Bruce Banner rolls up to the battlefield and in one of the film's most crowd-pleasing moments reveals his secret to Cap. "I'm always angry," as he instantly transforms into the Hulk on command and smashes a charging Leviathan with one punch. This moment is significant for Banner's character. It indicates he has found a way to control, or at least aim, his transformation, turning the Hulk from feared liability to a powerful ally at will. The team forms up at last. Iron Man swooping overhead blasting Chitauri, Cap and Black Widow on the ground, evacuating civilians, and fighting off aliens hand to hand. Thor calling lightning to strike down attackers, Hawkeye taking perches on rooftops picking off targets with explosively tipped arrows, and Hulk demolishing anything in his path. The famous 360-degree rotating shot of the 6 Avengers back-to-back in a circle, ready for battle, accompanied by Alan Silvestri's triumphant musical score, serves as the spine-tingling visual confirmation that the Avengers have assembled. It's an iconic scene in modern cinema, a pure comic book splash page come to life, which gave many fans chills. Each Avenger plays a role. The battle sequence smartly gives each hero distinct tasks that highlight their abilities and teamwork. Captain America naturally takes on field leadership. At one point, he issues assignments, call out patterns, fan out by the perimeter, and somebody get to that portal. He later gives the famous instructions to a pair of stunned beat cops, demonstrating his strategic mind and authority. I need men in those buildings, civilians in the basements, and perimeter set up all the way down to 39th. When the cops question why they should listen, a few Chitauri attack, and Cap dispatches them effortlessly, prompting the cops to follow his orders to the letter. Iron Man zips around drawing the most fire, effectively acting as aerial combat and pursuit for any stragglers. At one point, we see him leading a Leviathan on a chase through the city, then coordinating with Hawkeye to bring it down. Clint shoots an explosive arrow. Iron Man lures the beast into its path. Hawkeye's marksmanship shines as he nails targets that are a mile away, without looking, a backward shot off a building, and calls out enemy movements to the team, essentially acting as their scout and sniper. Black Widow, with less raw power, improvises mobility by hitching a ride on an alien sky scooter she commandeers. Her big objective becomes getting to the portal device atop Stark Tower. Thor and Hulk are the heavy hitters. Thor uses lightning strikes and brute force, tag-teaming with Hulk to take down a Leviathan together in spectacular fashion, and at one point summons a tornado under a group of Chitauri. Hulk is the wrecking ball. His standout moment comes when he confronts Loki. In Stark's penthouse, Loki tries to intimidate Hulk by declaring himself a god who will not be bullied, and Hulk responds by grabbing Loki like a rag doll and smashing him repeatedly into the floor, leaving Loki groaning in defeat. Hulk walks away muttering, "Puny god," in one of the film's funniest and most cathartic moments. Even Loki's actor Tom Hiddleston said audiences would cheer at Loki finally getting humiliated. This not only is comedic relief, it also symbolically shows the fall of Loki's arrogance. He is literally cut down to size, character payoffs and teamwork. Throughout the battle, we witness payoffs to earlier setup and teamwork that displays the Avengers' growth. Remember Tony and Steve's earlier argument about making the sacrifice play? In the battle, Tony doesn't hesitate to risk his life to carry a nuclear missile into the portal when the World Security Council launches one at Manhattan as a desperate failsafe. Tony diverts the nuke through the portal toward the Chitauri mothership, showing he can put his life on the line for others, directly answering Steve's challenge from before. Meanwhile, Steve fully acknowledges Tony's worth not just as a man in a suit, but as a hero through his actions in combat. Another example, earlier Thor had doubted human science. Now he and Hulk coordinate their attacks instinctively. And a subtle but important moment, Hawkeye and Black Widow fighting together seamlessly, demonstrating their trust and history. Natasha even jumps off his back at one point to get onto a moving Chitauri craft. These moments demonstrate how far they've come from the bickering individuals on the helicarrier. They are now operating as one unit, covering each other's backs and combining strengths. Despite the Avengers' valiant efforts, the onslaught seems endless. A classic wave defense scenario where the heroes are holding their own but can't close the portal as long as it's guarded by the Tesseract's energy. Here, Black Widow and Dr. Selvig, who, freed from mind control after getting knocked out during Loki's scuffle with Hawkeye, reveals he built a failsafe into the device, determined that Loki's scepter is the key to shutting down the portal. Fighting her way to the rooftop device, Natasha grabs the scepter and prepares to close the gate. Tony's sacrifice and the climax. Before Widow can shut the portal, the nuclear missile launched by the shadowy overseers, World Security Council, is inbound to the city. In a crucial act, Iron Man intercepts the missile and, seeing no better way, carries it up into the portal, effectively a suicide mission to save New York from nuclear annihilation. Stark flies the nuke through the wormhole and releases it, destroying the Chitauri mothership and disabling the alien army. All the Chitauri. Foot soldiers collapse lifeless once the ship is destroyed, a convenient but effective way to stop the battle. This moment is huge for Tony's arc. The man who used to be a selfish arms dealer becomes the man who saves the world from a nuclear bomb at the potential cost of his own life. Back on Earth, the team sees the nuke explosion in space and the alien forces fall. But now Tony is stranded, his suit losing power as he drifts unconscious back toward the closing portal. In a tense beat, the portal is closing just as Tony falls through. He's free falling with no power, possibly lifeless. But at the last second, Hulk leaps and catches the falling Iron Man, ensuring he doesn't become pavement paste. Tony is unresponsive at first, leading to genuine worry. Cap kneels to check him, and Thor, who previously clashed with Tony, now anxiously calls his name, showing how they've come to care. In true Marvel fashion, Tony wakes up with a gasp and immediately cracks a joke about wanting to try shawarma, a light-hearted callback to earlier dialogue. The team, and audience, exhales in relief. Stark's first question upon revival, "Did we win?" And Steve's affirmation that we did, yes, punctuate that this near sacrifice was not in vain. With Tony safe, Black Widow slams the scepter into the device, shutting down the portal before any other threats emerge. The invasion is officially over. The Battle of New York sequence is not only a sensory feast of action, it's packed with these meaningful moments that reward the narrative build-up. The Avengers fully come into their own as a team here, each contributing in critical ways. The cinematography even gives us a now famous long tracking shot that moves through the city, showing each Avenger in action in one continuous sweep, emphasizing that simultaneously Cap is fighting on the ground, Iron Man zips past overhead to assist Hawkeye. The camera moves to Black Widow, riding an alien chariot, then to Thor atop the Chrysler Building summoning lightning, then Hulk and Thor teaming up. It's a visually brilliant way to celebrate the ensemble in action. After the dust settles, we get the aftermath. Loki, defeated and cowering, is confronted by the Avengers as a group. In a comedic beat, he groans to the approaching heroes. "If it's all the same to you, I'll have that drink now," referencing Tony's earlier quip about drinks. The villain has been subdued. The mighty Loki has delivered a comeuppance, and notably it was the combined effort of the Avengers, and particularly Hulk's thrashing, that humbled him. For the first time, Loki looks genuinely frightened as Hulk roars at him one last time. Act 4. Aftermath and Epilogue. With Loki captured and the Chitauri invasion halted, the Avengers moves into a quick wrap-up of its story threads. In the immediate aftermath, the Avengers stand together amid the wreckage of Grand Central Station, with Loki in custody, and amusingly outfitted with a mouth gag to prevent any more tricks or taunts. The team has truly coalesced. They even share a moment of humour when Tony suggests they all finally try that shawarma restaurant he mentioned. A playful nod that will pay off in the post-credits scene. But duty calls. Thor takes responsibility for Loki and the Tesseract. In a brief scene, we see Thor use the Tesseract to generate a portal back to Asgard, bringing Loki home in chains to face justice, and also taking the Tesseract far away from Earth, removing that dangerous item from human hands for the time being. Loki's parting glare at the Avengers is met with a confident smirk from Tony, a silent acknowledgement that Loki lost and that Earth's defenders will be ready, should he or anyone like him try something again. The world's response to the Avengers' victory is shown in a montage of news reports and public reaction. There's praise and gratitude from many, crowds cheering, commentators lauding the heroes for saving countless lives. We also hear snippets of debate. One politician questions the destruction and whether the Avengers need oversight, setting seeds for future. Storylines about accountability. There's even the customary Stan Lee cameo in these montage clips, dismissing the idea of superheroes in New York with a chuckle. Overall, though, it's clear the Avengers have become household names. The film subtly implies a new era has begun. The age of heroes is public and undeniable. One touching detail is that Tony Stark and Bruce Banner drive off together after everything, hinting at the budding friendship. Science bros, as fans dubbed them. They're shown in Tony's fancy car, likely off to Stark Tower or another adventure. Clint Barton and Natasha leave together as well, perhaps to get well-deserved rest and regroup with SHIELD. Steve Rogers, having found a renewed purpose in this battle, rides off on his motorcycle, with a sense that he's starting to find his place in the modern world by being part of this team. Thor returns to Asgard with Loki, setting up the next chapter for those characters. The group doesn't make any formal goodbyes. In fact, Agent Maria Hill notes, "They just 11 vanished," and Fury responds with confidence that they'll be back when needed because they've proven themselves as Earth's protectors now. Nick Fury closes the book on this crisis by talking to his superiors. The World Security Council is upset that Fury let the Avengers get away and that he isn't keeping the Tesseract on Earth. Fury, ever the rebel in his own cool way, tells them that the Avengers are not lost. They're just not under anyone's thumb. He says, they'll come back, because we'll need them. This line encapsulates the ongoing mission and sets up future films. It also underscores a theme. The Avengers are not an army under government control. They are a voluntary family of heroes who will assemble when the world faces a threat no single hero can stop alone. The film ends on a triumphant note, but also realistically shows our heroes going their separate ways until fate, or Fury's call, unites them again. And because this is a Marvel movie, of course there are teasers in the credits. In the mid-credits scene, we get a bombshell for Marvel fans. The mysterious figure behind Loki's invasion is revealed. The other, Loki's alien ally, reports to his master that challenging Earth's heroes is no simple matter, saying that to attack Earth is to court death. At that phrase, the camera turns to reveal Thanos, the purple-skinned cosmic warlord, grinning at the prospect. This was huge. It promised that the ultimate villain of the Infinity Saga had entered the chat, so to speak. In 2012, casual audiences may not have recognized Thanos, but comic fans knew this was setting up a conflict of galactic proportions down the line. Indeed, this scene planted the seed for the eventual Infinity War/Endgame storyline, making the Avengers not just the culmination of Phase 1, but the starting point of a much larger saga. In the post-credits scene, at the very end, there's a purely comedic tag. The Avengers, exhausted after the battle, silently eat shawarma together at a small restaurant, as Tony had humorously suggested. It's a wordless, mundane scene, the heroes munching on food in complete fatigue, while the bewildered restaurant staff clean up around them. This little coda doesn't further the plot, but it humanizes the team. Even superheroes need a meal after saving the world, and became an iconic little moment in itself. Fun fact, this shawarma scene was filmed after the movie's premiere, added at the last minute. Chris Evans, Captain America, even had to hide his face with his hand because he'd grown a beard for another role by then. The shawarma tags a final wink to the audience, leaving them with a smile. With that, the Avengers concludes its narrative. A satisfying end where good prevails, the team is born, and new mysteries loom on the horizon. Character arcs and key dynamics. One of the reasons the Avengers work so well is that it isn't just about action. It gives each of its main heroes an arc, or at least a significant moment, and it develops the relationships between them. Let's examine the major characters and how each evolves through the story. Tony Stark/Iron Man. Tony starts the film still somewhat in his selfish, lone operator mindset. He's focused on his own projects, Stark Tower, and is skeptical of authority, tension with SHIELD. Through the film, we see Tony learn to play with others, initially clashing with Cap and not taking orders well, but eventually he becomes a team player. His willingness to sacrifice himself by taking the nuclear missile through the portal is the culmination of his arc, proving he has the heart of a hero and can put the greater good above his own life. This not only earns Cap's respect, but it's a turning point for Tony's character in the MCU. Later films show him grappling with the PTSD of this near-death experience and the knowledge of bigger threats out there. Also, Tony's leadership potential starts to show. While Cap is the field leader, Tony devises the plan to track the Tesseract's energy, figures out Loki's strategy, and crucially saves the day with his quick thinking on the nuke. By the end, Tony has gone from a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, mostly out for himself, to a heroic figure who works in a team and looks out for others. Steve Rogers/Captain America. Steve's journey is subtler but significant. At the start, he's a man out of time, feeling lost and somewhat disillusioned. He's disturbed by the modern secrets of SHIELD and the moral ambiguity compared to his World War II days. His initial interactions with Tony are fraught because Steve is searching for solid ground, and Tony's flippancy irks his 1940s sensibilities. Over the course of the film, Steve earns the role of team leader through action. He consistently is thinking tactically and protecting civilians, and the others naturally start following his commands when the invasion hits. There's a great moment where police initially question his orders, but then immediately comply after seeing his capability, illustrating that Cap commands respect by example. By the end, Steve has found a new home in the present. Being the leader of the Avengers gives him purpose. He also adapts, learning to trust teammates like Tony, whom he defends when Tony is unconscious, showing he cares despite their squabbles. In essence, Steve's arc is about finding his place in a strange new world, and he finds it by leading and inspiring this new team, proving that his values are still relevant. Thor Odinson. Thor's arc in the Avengers is partly a continuation of his first movie. He comes to Earth initially just to capture Loki and protect the Tesseract, somewhat viewing the conflict as his responsibility, a family problem, an Asgardian artifact issue. Thor starts off a bit removed from the others. He even fights Iron Man and Cap initially, and there's a running theme of him underestimating humans. He's protective of Earth, but also sees humans as lesser beings to safeguard, as shown by his surprise that they can actually challenge Loki. Over the film, Thor gains a deeper respect for mortals and fights alongside them as equals. He witnesses human ingenuity and courage, like Hawkeye and Black Widow, holding their own, or Tony's self-sacrifice. By the end, Thor is fully part of the team dynamic during the battle. He doesn't undergo a huge personal transformation. He'd already learned humility in Thor. But he does experience loss and responsibility. Seeing Loki's atrocities hurts him personally, and losing Coulson, who he knew from Thor, likely hardens Thor's resolve to stop Loki gently. Notably, Thor restrains himself from killing Loki outright. Instead, he opts to take him back to Asgard for justice, showing Thor's growth from a hothead warrior to a more measured protector. Thor's presence also brings a perspective of the larger universe. He's essentially the bridge between Earth's heroes and the cosmic threats like Thanos. Bruce Banner / the Hulk. Bruce's journey is one of self-acceptance and trust. When we meet him, he's isolated, fearful of harming others, and cynical about anyone wanting the other guy involved. He's very reluctant to join the fray. Throughout the helicarrier sequence, we see his anxiety justified as Loki's ploy triggers his worst-case scenario. But later, Banner returns for the Battle of New York willingly, a huge step for him, indicating he's embracing that the Hulk can be a force for good if aimed at the right target. The revelation, "I'm always angry," and his instantaneous transformation is a fist pump. Moment showing Bruce has achieved a new level of control. He can unleash the Hulk at will. The Hulk, in turn, finds a sense of belonging on the team. Instead of being a wild card, he works in tandem with the others, like his buddy moment, with Thor after they tag team a Leviathan, followed by Hulk playfully sucker-punching Thor aside, getting a laugh. Banner ends the film not as a feared fugitive, but as a hero accepted by peers. Notice how Tony casually invites Bruce along after the battle, a far cry from how Banner thought people would treat him. This acceptance is heartwarming for a character who thought he'd always be an outcast. Natasha Romanoff / Black Widow. Natasha's arc is woven through dialogue and her personal stakes with Hawkeye. We see a more vulnerable side of Black Widow in this film beneath her cool exterior. Loki dredging up her past, Dreykov's daughter San Paolo, etc. References to her dark deeds, establishes that Natasha carries guilt and is seeking redemption. "I've got red in my ledger, I'd like to wipe it out." Her determination to save Hawkeye is part of that. Clint had previously spared her life and brought her into SHIELD, giving her a chance to atone, and now she wants to repay that debt. When she succeeds in freeing Clint from Loki's control, you can sense her relief and resolve hardened. By the final battle, she fights with fearless commitment, even volunteering to close the portal, knowing it might trap her on the other side. Natasha proves her worth goes beyond being a spy. She holds her own among gods and monsters, with just skill and heart. Notably, she's the one who actually closes the portal and effectively ends the invasion threat. A human with no superpowers, saving the world with quick thinking and courage. Her arc of redemption isn't completed in one film that continues in future movies, but here she manages to balance personal emotion with duty, using her past, trickery and interrogating Loki, as a strength to aid the team. By the end, she shows that her ledger definitely got a bit cleaner that day. Clint Barton / Hawkeye. Hawkeye unfortunately spends a large portion of the movie under mind control, which limits his development on screen. However, this is used to effect by giving an emotional stake to Natasha and a personal vendetta for Clint. Once he's freed, Loki made him shoot his own people and nearly kill his best friend, so Clint wants payback. Once Hawkeye rejoins the good side, we do see his value as a team member. His pinpoint accuracy and tactical vision guide the others in battle. There's a satisfying feeling of Barton earning his place among the superhumans by sheer skill. One could say Clint's mini-arc is simply recovering from his ordeal and reasserting his agency. By the final act, he is cracking dry jokes. When the team is deciding what to do next, he says he's out of arrows, but will continue fighting regardless. And contributing like the consummate professional, he is. The film also implies the closeness between him and Natasha. Just like Budapest all over again, he quips during the fight, referencing a past mission only the two of them understand. That camaraderie adds depth to both non-superpowered members of the team. While Hawkeye doesn't get as much spotlight as others here, Marvel redeemed that in later films, especially Age of Ultron giving him more backstory. In the Avengers, his main role is to show the personal cost of Loki's actions, and then to provide support in the finale, which he does excellently. Loki. Though not an Avenger, Loki deserves mention as the villain whose arc carries over from Thor. In the Avengers, Loki has evolved, or devolved, into a more outright menacing figure. He's fueled by bitterness after his defeat in Thor, and now armed with new powers via the scepter, and a desperation to prove himself. Loki's trajectory in this film is essentially the rise and fall of a would-be conqueror. At the start, he's confident, cruel, and revels in making others kneel. As the story progresses, we see cracks. He's frustrated when things don't go perfectly, like the brief moment he loses his cool after the Hulk fight, before Coulson intervenes. By the end, Loki is utterly humiliated, physically battered by Hulk and mentally outmaneuvered by the Avengers. Interestingly, there's a theory some fans have that Loki might have subconsciously wanted to lose, that deep down, he was conflicted about serving Thanos and this was a cry for help. Evidence cited includes how his plan had some flaws, getting captured on purpose, which did sow chaos but also gave the heroes time to regroup, not using full lethal force at times. Whether or not that was the filmmaker's intent, it adds an interesting layer. Loki's defeat here ultimately leads him back to Asgard as a prisoner, which ironically spares him from Thanos' immediate wrath for failing. Regardless, Loki in the Avengers is a villain we love to hate. His charisma makes him enjoyable to watch, but his ruthlessness, killing Coulson, mind-enslaving Hawkeye, etc., gives the audience plenty of reason to cheer for his downfall. As one retrospective put it, Loki is everything you'd want a villain to be. Evil and sly, yet somehow likeable in his theatrics. His role as the antagonist who inadvertently unites the heroes is key. Fitting, since in Marvel Comics, Loki was indeed the catalyst that first assembled the Avengers. In that sense, Loki's arc fulfills a bit of destiny. His mischief brings about something far beyond his intentions, the birth of the Avengers. Nick Fury and Agent Coulson also deserve brief notes. Fury is the orchestrator who brings the team together and morally grounds them. He doesn't have a personal change, but he demonstrates his shrewd leadership, knowing how to motivate them, even using Coulson's death to do so. Coulson, with limited screen time, manages to be the emotional linchpin. His fanboy admiration for Cap and his earnest belief in the heroes make him incredibly endearing, so his death really hits home. Coulson's faith in the Avengers is almost like the faith of the Marvel fanbase embodied in a character, and when the team lives up to it, it's quite satisfying. We should note, in the MCU's broader canon, Coulson is later revived in the Agents of SHI ELD TV series, but within the films this death remains a pivotal moment. Themes and highlights beyond the plot and characters, The Avengers explores a few key themes and ideas. Unity and teamwork. The most obvious theme is about individuals coming together as a team. The Avengers each represent different qualities, tech genius, patriotism, godly power, uncontrolled rage, lethal skill, etc. And initially, those differences cause friction. The film suggests that unity is not about everyone being the same, or even initially friendly. It's about learning to trust and complement each other's strengths for a common goal. Nick Fury sums it up when he says he brought together a group of remarkable people to see if they could become more. By the end, they do, symbolised best in the iconic circle shot and their coordinated battle tactics. The movie celebrates the idea that when people set aside ego and truly work together, they can achieve something far greater than they ever could alone. It's a classic, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts message, but delivered with such earnestness and cool factor that it resonates. We see sub-themes here of friendship, Stark and Banner's bromance over science, Black Widow's loyalty to Hawkeye, and leadership, Cap stepping up to lead, Fury guiding but not controlling, freedom versus control, Loki's twisted goal. To make humanity kneel and accept subjugation sets up a thematic contrast between freedom and control. He argues that humans crave subservience, that freedom is a burden. The Avengers, by opposing him, stand for freedom and self-determination. Each Avenger in their own way embodies freedom. Tony's free will and individuality, contrasting Loki's attempt to mentally enslave people, Steve's fight against tyranny since World War II, Thor's respect for free worlds, etc. Interestingly, the film also touches on oversight versus freedom through the SHIELD subplot. Fury's secret weapons program leads to internal conflict, implying that even the good guys struggle with how much control, surveillance, weaponry is too much. Tony and Steve's argument about trust ties into this. Steve is upset Fury withheld information, a freedom of information issue, and Tony is a bit libertarian in bristling at authority. In the end, the Avengers choose to operate somewhat independently, on their own terms, as Fury notes, rather than as controlled assets. This sets groundwork for later debates in the MCU about oversight, Civil War picks that thread up explicitly. But here, the clear moral stance is that imposed order like Loki's is wrong, and flawed freedom, with all its chaos represented by the Avengers' messy but sincere alliance, is right. Heroism and sacrifice. The film asks what it means to be a hero. One answer it gives is sacrifice, the willingness to put oneself at risk for others. We see this through Tony's arc, carrying the nuke, but also through other moments like Captain America leaping in without hesitation to protect civilians, or Black Widow being ready to close the portal, knowing it could trap her. Coulson's death is framed as a heroic sacrifice. He died still believing in that idea of the Avengers. Fury says, the idea of avenging itself is tied to honouring sacrifice. They rally after Coulson falls. The Avengers are distinct because, unlike Loki, who wants glory and power, they are willing to lay down their lives to save people. Tony's earlier flippant attitude, we're not soldiers, gives way to him literally acting like one, carrying a one-way ticket bomb. This theme elevates the film beyond just fun fights. It gives it a heart. We're reminded that true heroism often requires selflessness, identity, and self-acceptance. Several characters struggle with who they are. Tony is challenged to define himself beyond the suit, and he proves he's a hero inside as well as outside the armour. Banner struggles to accept the monster within, and by the end finds a way to integrate that into his identity. I'm always angry suggests he's embraced that the Hulk is part of him, not a separate, uncontrollable entity. Steve is trying to figure out his role in a modern context. By donning the uniform again and leading, he reclaims his identity as Captain America in this new era. Natasha faces her past and asserts who she wants to be. Her conversation with Loki has her reaffirming her intent to wipe her ledger clean. Even Thor's identity, as both an Avenger ally and Asgardian prince, is balanced here as he fights for Earth's people and then returns to his world. The interplay of these heroes discovering who they are in relation to each other is a compelling undercurrent. By forming the team, they actually help each other affirm their individual identities. There's a reason future films depict them as a kind of family. It started here with that bonding. Humour amidst peril. While not a theme in the philosophical sense, it's worth noting as a motif. The Avengers has a lot of humour, and that was somewhat innovative for such a high-stakes action film. This balance of levity and drama became an MCU hallmark. Moments like Hulk thrashing Loki, Tony's one-liners, Cap's man-out-of-time quirks. I understood that reference when someone mentions Wizard of Oz, all serve to break tension and make the characters more relatable. Whedon's style infuses the film with quips that could have undermined the seriousness, but generally they land well and even enhance the theme of camaraderie. The team starts joking more as they gel, e.g. Iron Man nicknaming Hawkeye Legolas in battle shows a friendly rapport. The humour also ties to identity, Tony's snark, Cap's earnestness, leading to accidental humour, Hulk's physical comedy. These are expressions of who they are. The ability to be light in dark moments is almost portrayed as an asset of the heroes, keeping them human and optimistic in the face of doom. Easter eggs, foreshadowing, and fan theories. Marvel is known for peppering its films with Easter eggs and references, and The Avengers is no exception. Here are some intriguing ones, and bits of foreshadowing that fans have picked up on. Foreshadowing. Phase 2. Interestingly, some of the heated dialogue during the helicarrier argument scene foreshadows events of later MCU films. Phase 2. For example, when Steve challenges Tony, "Take away the suit and what are you?" It anticipates Tony's character crisis in Iron Man 3, where he must cope without his armour and figure out who he is. Nick Fury's sarcastic line to Loki, "You think you're the only one who's had to come to their planet and play God?" Paraphrasing Fury's retort about aliens coming to Earth, is echoed by the Dark Elves attacking Asgard in Thor, the Dark World, essentially outsiders wreaking havoc on someone else's home turf. Another example, Natasha's line "we all are" in response to being monitored by SHIELD subtly nods to the Winter Soldier plot, where SHIELD, infiltrated by Hydra, was indeed keeping watch and ultimately targeting the Avengers and other heroes. These bits of dialogue seemed innocuous or just snappy at first, but in hindsight, they predicted key plot points in subsequent films. It shows Marvel's foresight in planning and also rewards fans on rewatch when they realise those lines carried extra meaning. Loki's scepter and the Mind Stone. At the time of the Avengers release, the blue gem in Loki's scepter was not explicitly identified as an Infinity Stone. But later films, Age of Ultron, revealed it was the Mind Stone all along. This retroactively makes many moments more significant. The Mind Stone's influence explains the Avengers' internal discord, as discussed, and also possibly why Loki himself is more cruel and unhinged. The MCU tie-in material suggests Loki was being subtly corrupted by the scepter as well, effectively being manipulated by Thanos' will. That adds a layer to Loki's actions. While he's villainous by choice, he also might not have been entirely free from the scepter's influence, which itself embodies the kind of mind control he was perpetrating on others. Fans theorised this as well, noting that Loki's eyes are oddly reflective in some scenes, possibly indicating the scepter's hold on him. Whether one accepts that or not, the scepter clearly was more than a generic power weapon. It was planting seeds for the broader Infinity Saga. Thanos and courting death. The mid-credits reveal of Thanos smiling when told that challenging Earth is courting death is actually a cheeky nod to the comics. In Marvel Comics lore, Thanos is infatuated with the literal embodiment of death, Mistress Death, and tries to court her by killing on a massive scale. The line, "to challenge them is to court death," made comic fans grin because Thanos' little smirk directly acknowledges that double meaning. It was a clever Easter egg that also served story purposes, setting up Thanos as a major threat moving forward. Original comics. Callback, Loki being the villain who forces the Avengers to assemble, is a direct homage to the Avengers. Number 1 1963 comic, where Loki's trickery is the reason Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Ant-Man and Wasp team up. In the film, the lineup is a bit different, replacing the latter two with Cap, Hawkeye, Black Widow. But the spirit is the same. Fans appreciated that the MCU honoured the Avengers' comic book origin by choosing Loki as the first big bad. Additionally, some visual Easter eggs, the Stark Tower, A that remains after the battle, most of the letters get knocked off except the giant A, hints that the tower will become the Avengers' base, Avengers Tower, in future films, which indeed happens in Age of Ultron. The helicarrier's number, 65, is a reference to a specific comic issue or creator's birth year. These kind of number Easter eggs are common, though this one is a bit obscure. Budapest and shared history. There are references that hint at past missions, like Black Widow quipping to Hawkeye. Just like Budapest all over again, to which Clint replies, "You and I remember Budapest very differently." This throwaway line suggests a significant mission they underwent together, sparking years of fan curiosity. Marvel eventually gave a nod to this in the Black Widow solo film, though it remained somewhat mysterious. It's an Easter egg in the sense of world building, implying that these characters have lives and adventures outside the films we've seen, making the universe feel richer. Stan Lee's cameo and cultural impact. Stan Lee's cameo in the news montage saying, "Superheroes in New York, give me a break," is playful, but also a meta-reference. Stan co-created many of these characters, and seeing them all on screen in New York, where Marvel Comics is based, is a dream come true. So the line is delivered with tongue-in-cheek irony. The montage also has a waitress, whom Cap saved, expressing gratitude, which personalizes the civilian perspective. These touches foreshadow how the MCU would continue to show ordinary people's reactions, like in Spider-Man, Homecoming, or Ms. Marvel series, where Avengers are treated like celebrities. It's world building that sells the idea that this wasn't just a contained incident. It changed global awareness. Indeed, later MCU installments frequently refer back to the Battle of New York as a historical event. For example, Spider-Man films mention it. Daredevil, the TV series, dealt with its aftermath in Hell's Kitchen, and Endgame even revisited it via time travel. In many ways, the Avengers became a fulcrum point for the fictional universe. Shawarma boom. This one is outside the narrative, but fun. After the movie's release, sales of shawarma, a Middle Eastern meat wrap, reportedly spiked as people were curious to try the food Tony Stark mentioned. It's an instance of a casual joke in the film having a real-world impact. The MCU's power on pop culture is that strong. The shawarma scene itself has no dialogue, but if you look closely, you notice details like Cap sitting silently with his hand over his face, hiding Chris Evans' prosthetic to cover his beard. It's a rare moment where the heroes are doing something utterly normal, eating, which Marvel included purely as a comedic reward for fans who stayed through all the credits. Finally, let's touch on a notable fan theory that circulated after the Avengers. Did Loki actually win in the end by helping create the Avengers? The idea here is that Loki's actions, while meant to subjugate Earth, ended up causing the formation of a permanent team that would go on to thwart not just him but even his boss Thanos. In other words, Loki unintentionally did a net positive for Earth by bringing the heroes together, something even he couldn't have foreseen. This isn't so much a theory affecting the movie's events as a hindsight observation, but it's interesting philosophically. The Avengers are born out of Loki's attempt to tear them apart, implying a theme of adversity forging unity. In the context of the story, Loki certainly didn't intend that, but it's an ironic outcome. In fact, one could argue Fury also believed that only a significant threat could have united these strong-willed individuals. In a way, Loki provided that crucible. Another fun theory, some fans jokingly ask, where were other heroes during all this? For example, what was War Machine, Iron Man's friend Rhodey, doing during the Chitauri invasion? Marvel's tie-in comics later explained Rhodey was dealing with a simultaneous threat elsewhere. As the MCU wiki notes, he was ambushed in Hong Kong and arrived late. It wasn't mentioned in the film itself, but details like that have been filled in via official, expanded media. Similarly, fans speculated about characters like the Fantastic Four, or X-Men, but those weren't in the MCU at the time due to rights, so in-universe they simply don't exist, at least then. Overall, the Avengers is an Easter egg in itself for comic enthusiasts. From the visual of them assembled, an homage to countless comic covers, to lines like Hulk, smash, which directly references Hulk's catchphrase, "It's a movie that knows its roots." It even gave us the Thanos tease, which launched endless fan discussions in 2012. Was that who I think it was? Are they really going to do the Infinity Gauntlet story? Looking back now, we know they did, and it was epic, but this film sowed those seeds carefully. Legacy and impact. It's hard to overstate just how significant The Avengers 2012 was for the movie industry and fans. In terms of impact, it proved the viability of the shared universe model in cinema beyond any doubt. After The Avengers, every studio wanted a universe, whether it was DC trying to fast-track a Justice League, or others attempting franchises. Universal's failed dark universe of monsters, etc. Marvel had set a template. Build individual character films that culminate in a crossover event. Repeat and rinse. It became a new paradigm for blockbusters. From a critical and audience perspective, The Avengers showed that a movie could juggle many main characters and still give each a moment to shine. This has influenced how ensemble films are written. The concept of screen time balance and making sure everyone has an arc or memorable moment is something future filmmakers would cite when handling big casts, like the Russo brothers with later Avengers films or other franchise crossovers. The film's tone, a blend of earnest heroism and light-hearted fun, also set the MCU's course. It struck a chord such that Marvel leaned into that tone going forward. For better or worse, some critics later said Marvel used the Avengers as a formula too much, focusing on quips and spectacle. But as the retrospective noted, Whedon's success here was in making those quips organic. For fans, the Avengers delivered a sense of payoff and possibility. Seeing the heroes together was a delight that many never imagined possible. It's often remembered as a high point in the MCU, not necessarily the most complex film, but one of the most purely enjoyable and iconic. The Avengers Assemble concept became a pop culture staple, even though Cap doesn't actually say assemble until a later sequel. This film's spirit embodies that phrase. The movie gave us lines that are still quoted. We have a Hulk and puny God. I understood that reference, etc. And moments that are celebrated. The circular hero shot. Hulk punching Thor suddenly. Iron Man's near sacrifice. These have been referenced in countless subsequent media, parodies, and of course by Marvel itself in later films. On a thematic level, the Avengers reinforced optimism. It suggested that when the world is in peril, disparate people can come together and save it, which is a comforting thought. In 2012, this resonated strongly and continues to as people face various real-world crises and love seeing stories of unity. From a technical standpoint, the film was also a milestone in visual effects, creating a fully CGI Hulk that looked like Mark Ruffalo and could perform with the other actors believably was a leap, and indeed the Hulk's rendering and character in this film was widely praised as the best up to that time. The massive New York battle was a feat of coordination between live action and CGI, setting a new bar for large-scale superhero battles, one that Marvel would keep trying to top in subsequent films. The movie's score by Alan Silvestri deserves mention as part of its legacy. The Avengers' main theme introduced here, the rousing orchestral theme you hear during the hero shots, became the musical anthem of the MCU. It's recognizable and was brought back in future big moments, like when all the portals open in Endgame. They play the Avengers theme at the climax, paying off what started here. In retrospect, some critics note that The Avengers is a perfect popcorn movie, not overly deep, but extremely effective at what it set out to do. It's tightly structured. Some analyses break it into 5 acts of build-up, breakdown and resolution. And it somehow manages to introduce a lot of exposition and still feel fun. This speaks to Whedon's skill. He leveraged his experience writing ensemble TV, like Buffy, to ensure each character had a voice, and the story moved briskly. The film's success also proved that a well-managed tone can please both hardcore fans and general audiences. It's both an earnest superhero story and a comedy action spectacle. That broad appeal is why it filled theatres with not just comic fans, but whole families and new viewers, converting many into MCU followers. As one. Audience reviewer said, Avengers is arguably the main reason a lot of people jumped into Marvel films. In closing, The Avengers, 2012, stands as a landmark film that delivered on an unprecedented promise. It took heroes from separate stories and made them part of one grand narrative, without losing what made each special. It's a film about how a team is formed, through conflict, tragedy, and ultimately unity. It gave us unforgettable scenes, advanced an ongoing storyline, setting up Infinity Stones and Thanos. And most importantly, it entertained and inspired millions. Even today, rewatching The Avengers can evoke the same excitement and wonder as when it first came out, because it captures that magic of seeing heroes unite against impossible odds and triumph. It's no wonder that more than a decade later, fans still get a thrill when they hear Captain America finally say, "Avengers, assemble." A moment earned by the journey that began in earnest with this very film. The Avengers is not just a movie where there was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people. It's itself a remarkable achievement in modern storytelling and franchising. It's the payoff of a bold idea and the starting line for so much more to come. In the years since, the Avengers have become a cultural icon, and it all traces back to this film that proved that the whole could indeed be greater than the sum of its parts. In the end, we watched them come together, we saw them fall apart, and we cheered as they assembled again to save the world. And it was, to quote a certain armoured hero, indeed awesome.